Cue that beat.
This is what happens. You guys just hear something Eagles, and then it's like a dog. He sees a squirrel. It's just,
I would say 75% of all NFL quarterbacks can be dialed down to different flavors of Kirk Cousins. They're all just Kirk Cousins. All of them.
So there's conditions. No, I absolutely understand do not draft list. If someone's on my do not draft list, I'm not drafting him.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into the Mind the Gap podcast. Happy MLB opening day. Happy Sweet 16 debut day. I believe that Alabama and Sears just kicked the absolute crap out of BYU. What was it, a record in
scored more than 110 points.
Yeesh.
In a college basketball game.
Unreal.
Just insanity.
Love it so much.
Clobbering.
Clobbering. Great word. That makes me think of the thing from the Fantastic Four. It's clobbering. Anyway, we're moving on. We
also
are
burying the lead, dude. Florida taking care of business against Maryland.
They're a 1 seed. They were supposed to.
Yeah, dude, exactly. We're going to the Elite Eight, winning it all. I am scared of Duke. The only team I'm scared of in the tournament is Duke because they have size on the wing that we don't necessarily have.
What, the flag kid scares you a little bit?
Well, flag for sure, but even Proctor's
good.
He's in the 6'6", 6'7" range. Our guys are like 6'2", 6'3", 6'4" on the wing, and so I think that could be a little bit of a problem for us.
Proctor is the stereotypical vet who stayed around longer than they needed to, and now they have become a real threat, a real presence, and just it helps when there are 3 freshmen on the starting lineup between Cooper Flagg, their 7-footer, and I'm blanking. Knippel. I don't know.
I don't have a confirmed pronunciation on that.
I don't either. But those 3 are their freshmen, and then they have 1 transfer from, I think it's SDSU, and then Proctor, who is there, born and raised. He's been at Duke forever. He's fun to watch. And it's just terrifying to know that he could be a coach on the floor, and I'm just like, I picked Florida to win it, and he and Flagg are the ones I'm scared of.
I was scared when my brother-in-law texted me at halftime, and it was 40-38, and I told him to go kick rocks, and then Florida started pulling away. So fingers crossed, we still hang in there.
Not to fully get me started, but we've averaged 11 turnovers a game over the course of the year, which is good by college basketball standards. In both games, so the UConn game that we just won and then the Maryland game we're in right now, we've had more than that at halftime.
UConn is a different dog, though. Like, legitimately, that's not to be like a play on the Huskies or anything. They're a good program. Hurley has major issues.
Oh, for sure.
Take his personality out of it, he does know how to coach a basketball team.
I mean, his
at
offensive
least on the
stats
floor.
Beautiful. Like, he had our guys in the spin zone the whole time, just like head spinning, had no idea what to do.
There's a reason he was in talks for that Lakers job before he went to Reddick.
Yeah. And so I just need us to come out a little less sloppy because then in the second half, I think we're up 20 right now, almost 20. We're up like 15 in the second half. But just come out and do this from the jump anyway.
I don't know. I've been saying it to all who listen. My favorite team this entire tournament was Colorado State. To watch them lose was devastating. We have 2 pieces of news before we get to the meat of our show. But the meat of our show today is defensive tackles. We are breaking down and doing another positional breakdown. You saw the title. Breaking down this group of interior defensive linemen. I can't wait. Mason Graham and company is going to be fun to talk about. 2 pieces of news. Number 1, we did a mock draft on Tuesday. I think it went up yesterday morning. And we had Shedeur Sanders going number 3 to the Giants. And then in the time since then, while I was editing that show, Russell Wilson signed with the New York Giants for 1 year. I believe it's $10.5 million guaranteed. Pulling it up to make sure that I'm correct.
I think you're right.
It was
I'm pretty sure it was 1 for 21.
Total.
Yeah, and then the 10.5.
10.5 guaranteed, and the rest is in, quote Ian Rappaport, a very complicated incentive package that could get him up to $7.5 million based on playing time, performance incentives, playoff incentive, another $3 million, yada yada yada. Anyways, so it's 10.5 basically to Russell Wilson. It's going to be, I guess, around 15 after all the incentives. That's how these contracts tend to play out. How do we feel about, Ryan, we talked about this a little before the show. How do we feel about how this changes the Giants at 3?
Aaron, I'm going to be completely honest.
You don't think it does?
I don't know what's going to happen. And that's scary. And I know the media is probably like all eyes on this because Travis Hunter at 3 is a very real possibility.
Yeah.
and Shadur Sanders falling. I don't know how far he would fall if he doesn't get picked in the top 3. He could go all the way to 7. He could go all the way to 9. It really depends on how the board falls. So I think the most important pick in this draft is at number 2.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of typical for an NFL draft, is that 1, 2, or 3 is the most important. Not to like minimize what you're saying. So when this news broke, I was just waiting on the Ringer NFL draft show to drop so I could listen to Danny Heifetz talk about this. Forlorn Giants fan who absolutely is devastated by the direction of his franchise. Great to listen to. He said something interesting, and it was about how this move indicates that the Giants either want Shadur and can't get him and think the Browns are going to take him, or they don't want Shadur and are at least content going into the season with Russell Wilson starting, Jameis as the dog biting his heels. I think this indicates that they either, like Heifetz said, it either indicates that Shadur is going to be gone at 3, or it indicates that they're more comfortable with next year's class, or option C, Jackson Dart. So Tyler, if you're,
so why are we signing Russ to a 1-year deal then? Like, what would that solve?
That solves not being forced. That solves not this. That solves the Steelers' problem. Right, that solves the Steelers' problem. The Steelers right now are backed into a corner absolutely desperate for Aaron Rodgers to make them the prom queen, right? They are just sitting and waiting. Their starting quarterback right now is Mason Rudolph. They are desperate for Aaron Rodgers or Kirk Cousins, and it's Rodgers right now because Kirk hasn't been – the trade conversations aren't moving, if there are any. So they're desperate. The Giants, to avoid desperation, brought in Jameis, who could start in this league, and brought in Russ, who has started in this league, albeit horribly for the last – insert seasons here. So this was to avoid the desperation and avoid being stuck with one of Rodgers or Shadur and give the coaching staff some flexibility. So now that your options are either draft Shadur and have him backed up by Russ, draft Shadur and have him back up Russ, or draft Dart, have him be the Jordan Love-esque player where he's going to sit and actually, I would say learn, but he's not going to learn anything from Russ. He's going to sit and develop with the coaching staff. Or you wait until next season and try and get Arch.
It just makes you not have to do anything at 3. It makes you a little more flexible. What I don't think it does, I don't think it signals that they're not going to take Shadur at 3. These are very, very much 1-year options. Like,
I hear you. I think this indicates that whatever's happening, they're not getting Shadur. I think you're right how it opens them up to other flexibilities, and Dart being one of them, and Quinn Ewers could possibly be an option here. Freaking Arch Manning next year's class could be an option. I don't think that Shadur is one of those possibilities because of this move.
Maybe. There's a lot of smoke. We don't really know what's happening with the Browns right now. It's pretty much a 50-50 split on whether they're going to take Carter or Sanders, and that's a really pivotal spot. I think if Sanders is there at 3, I still just lean on Daboll wanting to buy some time, just seeing if he can have this shiny toy to do something with. But, that doesn't have to happen because, like you said, the flexibility it gives them is that they could do something in either the second round, trading back up into the first round, which the Ravens did with Lamar. Like, this is something that teams do all the time and something that could be smart for the Giants if they're not completely sold on Shadur.
Yeah.
We talked about the Browns for a second, but did you guys see what I sent you over text this week from JPA?
Yeah.
So
I got to be honest.
I don't know if it's smoke. It makes logical sense.
Yeah.
Okay, no, because
he has a no trade clause, but
I was going to say,
let's fill the people in. Ryan sent us a tweet from JPA Football at JASRI Football. I don't know. And it's basically some Chicago or Cleveland, some Cleveland radio host talking about how he has a source saying the Browns are trying to trade for Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott. So it was JPA
he says
aggregated.
It's a very good source. I think we need to add that in there.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Here's the deal. I don't believe him.
That's where I'm at.
There is zero shot. I didn't even know Deshaun had a no trade clause. That makes it a 0% possibility, in my opinion.
No, Dak has a no trade clause.
Oh, Dak has no trade clause. Well, that's even more of a 0%. Dak didn't want to go to Cleveland.
Why would he go to Cleveland?
Also, just the money, because either Cleveland would have to have the Cowboys take all of Deshaun's money because they can't. They're over the cap right now. Do you know how much you would have to tag on to Deshaun Watson to A, just get Dak, but then B, to have the Cowboys be willing to take $50 million a year in Deshaun Watson money. That's not going to happen. You would have to trade multiple first rounders. I don't think the Browns want to do that. They're already handicapped as it is. So as much as it's a good source, my guess is somebody's trying to leak this to just drum up information, maybe even see if any team wants to trade up into 2 if they think the Browns are going to take Shador there. So I don't see any way that could possibly happen.
They're trying to show that they're not desperate, that they have options, and one of those is Dak Prescott, in the same way that the Giants now actually have options. Speaking of desperation, the Pats were desperate and had money to burn, so they signed Stephon Diggs to a 3-year, $26 million guaranteed, $69 million total contract. So the Patriots receiver room now consists of Kayshon Boutte, Javon Baker, Demario Douglas, and Stephon Diggs. This feels like they just couldn't get any of the other... They just picked up the one last girl at the bar because everyone else was taken, right? They couldn't get Ayuk. They couldn't get Metcalf. They couldn't get anybody else they wanted. They couldn't get Godwin. This was the Godwin money that they just couldn't give him.
Yeah, this is another case of you got to pay somebody. They still had, I believe, even after all their free agency signings, they had around $50 million left in cap space for this year. So
they burnt it.
You might as well have a player take up that space instead of it just being money that you don't use. Diggs is a good receiver.
Is he? That's what I wanted to get to.
Before the injury, he was.
Do we think that if 100% Stephon Diggs is the Minnesota Miracle, the Diggs we saw in Buffalo with Josh Allen, that is 100%. What kind of percentage do you think we're realistically going to get Drake May to throw to?
See, I didn't actually see the breakdown year by year, but I'm going to say a solid 65%.
I was going to say 60 to 70, so I'm right there with you.
He's not terrible, but he's definitely not what he used to be. But I'm going to be honest, I don't think he plays the full 3 years. I think he might even retire before his contract's up.
Retirements, wide receivers don't retire. They wait until the league has passed them by and then retire. It just...
kind of felt like it already has.
Well, to Diggs' credit, he could still be a quality wide receiver 2 or very high tier wide receiver 3. The issue is New England's giving him wide receiver 1 money with the way that their team is rostered.
He shouldn't be their wide receiver 1, but he's also better than any receiver they have on their roster currently. And that's good for me. They're getting better. They're getting more weapons. We'll see what they do in the draft. If they don't take one at 4, which probably not, they're one of the top candidates, I would say. I believe they have a second round pick, so taking a wide receiver high in the second round, I think, is very much on the table for them. Again, this offseason was just about getting good players in the building. They didn't have a lot of those going into the year. And so are they overpaying for Diggs? This is similar to Milton Williams. Yeah. What else were you going to do with it?
Yeah, they have 38, by the way. 38 overall. I'm seeing a mock here that has Josh Connerly going to them at 38, which I would love, actually.
I was going to say, don't mind that at all.
No. And they have number 69, where 69 overall in the third rounder. That is like A.O. Manor range, who is this mock draft? Because I like this. Sean McGuire for NESN.com I'm loving this. Travis Hunter at 4, Josh Connerly at 38, A.O. Manor at 69, Princely Umanmielen 7. That's a reach. 77 for Princely Umanmielen. That's not happening. But the Pats have 3 third-round picks.
You're saying, well, never mind. Well, that's not the main point. We'll blow past that.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask, because Princely at 77, I think would be a steal for that player.
I have him at 37.
I'm saying he's not going
to... he won't last.
He won't last that
yes.
long.
Yeah. That's what I thought you were saying.
He's a borderline first-rounder is where I was at. And I think that him falling to 77 was a reach on the writer's part. I did like most of the mock, though. That was quality.
No, for sure, because we've talked about it, but while this is not a wide receiver class that I think is heavy on star number 1 type receivers, you can get some really good players that will play pivotal roles for you in the second and even third round.
Yeah. If they can get Hunter at 4, unlikely with what I think the Giants will do at 3. If they can get Hunter, that is perfect for them. We talked about that earlier. I think did we have Hunter mocked to them at 4? I think we did. Yeah, we had Hunter mocked to them at 4 in our last mock. I love that. That's perfect. And then you are solving a lot of issues. You have your wide receiver 1 to pair with Stephon Diggs. If you can't get Hunter at 4, I think they could trade back to see, or I mean, you just take the best player there. But if Hunter and Abdul are both gone, trading back for Ted is realistically not half bad. Are we ready to get to Tyler? Before we get to that, you got something?
No, I was gonna say I just agree. Like, if you I want you to take Ted McMillan at number 4 overall? I think that's a little bit of a reach. If you're able to get him at 10 to 15, I think you are getting really good value.
Agreed. I think his range is 9 to 14 is where you can realistically take him. I don't think he is that talented of a player. I think I'm going to have him between 17 and 20. But the wide receiver inflation.
Whoa!
I mean, where's he at on my board right now? I'm looking. Let me look at this.
Whoa!
Hold up. That's not a crazy.
That's not a hot take.
I have
him at 21.
I have him at 12 right now, and that's
crazy.
That's
moved up 1 actually since doing these D tackle rankings.
I have him at 12, and that is falling because I also am going to change things with my D tackle rankings.
Oh, guys, you don't see the vision.
No, I see the vision. I just don't like it.
You don't see the vision.
I had 3 guys fall semi-significantly after doing these rankings.
What, in D tackles?
For D tackles.
Okay, we'll get to that. I did as well. You know what? Let's just get to it. Let's start with the defensive tackles. I think I have mine broken up into 6 tiers, 5 realistic, and then the tier 6 being the rest. Did you guys break yours into tiers, or are we just going to go through it 1 through whatever?
I have 1, 2, 3, 4 tiers. The 4th tier is kind of the mumbo jumbo middle of the pack guys.
That's fair. Let's get to it. Number 1, I think we all have. Do we all have the same guy at number 1?
Mason Graham, defensive tackle, Michigan Wolverines.
He is the truth. So Mason Graham from Michigan is emerging as a top 5 player in this class. I believe, according to NFL Mock Draft Database, he is the 5th best player in this class, according to consensus boards. Which his peak being number 4, right behind Cam, Abdul, Travis, Genty. He is fantastic. I don't think there's anything he can rush the passer. He can stop the run. He's an excellent run stopper. He does what, Ryan? You made a face.
Well, I was not gonna give him rushing the passer just willy nilly like that. He's gonna have to work for it. But he is the best run defender in the class.
Yeah, and he does that at 6'4", 296.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, Tyler, help me out a little bit.
Really strong player, just explosive, blows up plays. I compare him to a bomb. He goes off when the snap starts. He is so quick off the line, so strong. His hands are great. He is both powerful, straight in line, and he is really quick side to side. And so he can beat guards and centers any way he wants to, whether it's driving them back, whether it's getting around them. And so I like that. You got to be able to win in multiple ways in the league. You can't be a one-trick pony. So love that. And I do think he's a good pass rusher. More than anything, he just got doubled a ton.
Exactly.
Because even though Michigan had a good D-line, Josiah Stewart was good, Kenneth Grant was good, Kenneth Grant is not much of a pass rusher at 340. And so when people were dropping back and running drop back pass game in the Big Ten, they were devoting a ton of attention to Mason Graham, which I think just drops his pressure counting stats, his pass rush win rate, stuff like that. And he still got the passer, even with some of that coming at him from different Big Ten teams. So really like Mason Graham as a player.
Other little things that are out there to like, I believe he was, where is it? I lost it in front of me. He was on the, I think it's all SEC or all Big Ten academic. He was like consistently in the academic awards for the Big Ten, which little things that I love. The character thing where everyone says he's the best guy ever. I just don't think that he is one of the most sure things we have in this class. 3.5 sacks, 45 tackles, 7 TFLs in 2025 while getting double teamed the entire season. And are we worried about anything about his physicals before we move on? 6'4", 296, slightly underweight, and his arm length is a 32-inch arm. Could be slightly concerning.
I will say that did kind of factor into my decision where I put him. I actually had him at I think 6 or 7 when we started, and I moved him to 9. So not a huge drop off at all.
Who do you have above him? What does the rest of your list look like?
Carter, Hunter, Genty, Jackson, Starks, Johnson, Walker, and Warren. So it was hard. It really was, because again, he is a plus run defender. I could not knock him, I think, on two things, but in the pass rush, there were some things like Tyler already hinted. Great lateral quickness, can move guards with ease. He had no problem with that. He played multiple different positions on the line because that Michigan front was just a little complex. But great angles. But something I did note was like it looked like he needed to kind of think what he was going to do before the snap. And again, that comes with time. That comes with coaching. That's not something that he's just going to pick up instantly. I think his plan of attack could use some work, and maybe just more pass rush moves or a go-to move was one thing I noted.
But that's a common criticism of a lot of young pass rushers.
Yeah, and rightfully so. It was nothing that moved him down dramatically. He could still absolutely go in the top 5. Again, the earliest we talked about him going is number 5 to the Jaguars,
right?
Or even 6 to the Raiders. So it's all about preference. What do you want? What do you want to build? But if you are looking for a premier run stopper, Mason Graham is him. And I actually have a comp for a Walmart Mason Graham in this class later on the line.
I wanted to talk about comps for a second. The comp that I consistently saw, and the one that I thought made sense, was Christian Barmore. That was I don't know if it makes there's comping defensive tackles always feels difficult to me. It feels like it's one of the harder positions to look and be like, that's how they play, unless they're like very clearly a Quinnen Williams type or a Fletcher Cox type. Christian Barmore makes a little bit of sense to me. Hey, Tyler, how do we feel about that? And is there a comp that you liked?
I know early on we talked about Quinnen Williams. I like that. Both similar guys where they're...
He says he watches a lot of Quinnen tape.
Which makes sense. They're both squattier guys, but also not huge. Like they're in that 295 to 305 range, both really laterally quick, amazing against the run, really twitchy guys. So I know Ryan threw that out at the beginning of the year, and that's kind of the comp that I think's made sense in my head the whole process.
We talked about arm lengths just now, and there is an arm length thing that we're going to stray away from defensive tackles and talk about an offensive tackle for a second. Will Campbell, who I'm sure you guys have seen this news, 32 and 5/8 inch arms at the scouting combine, and then it was remeasured by an NFL scout at LSU, and it measured all the way up at 33 inches. Does this change where we have him? And I can cut this if you guys just haven't moved the needle at all.
It didn't change anything for me. He actually came in with a smaller wingspan while having longer arms, so that's interesting. A wingspan typically, at least when you talk to scouts or what they post, matters more because it is just about how far you can reach. It's not just, hey, the arm itself. It's your whole body and being able to extend and stuff like that. So the wingspan is probably more worrisome than just the pure arm length. But like we said in our tackles episode, the way that he has a really strong core, the way that he has really strong grip strength in his hands so he can't get them knocked off, and then just the way he shows at times really good punch placement and punch timing, and then just his overall athleticism, all of those factors I think make up for him not having super long arms.
Yeah, when you talk about defensive tackles, offensive tackles, at times the NFL is a game of inches, right? You're like 6 inches away from getting a touchdown. You're 3 inches away from getting that first down, and you're 2 inches away from getting a sack. But the other guy has longer arms than you, so it matters.
In some instances, an index card.
Right, exactly. I'm just curious to see when we talk about these guys and their arm lengths, how much that changes things later down the line when it comes to like picking nits with some of these later prospects. At tackle number 2, I think do we agree that there's a teardrop from 1 to 2, from Graham to everybody else?
Yes.
So my tier 2 is first rounders, and I'm going to list mine off. You guys can argue with me however you feel. Number 2, I have Walter Nolen from Ole Miss. 3, I have Kenneth Grant. 4, Derek Harmon from Oregon, and then I have another teardrop there.
So we'll get into it. I'm a little lower on Kenneth Grant than consensus.
That's fair.
But I have Harmon 2 and then Nolen 3, and then I have a teardrop. So I got 2 of the 3 there for you.
I'm actually with you there, Tyler. I was going back, and Walter Nolen was actually in the teens for me. I dropped him to 24, so still in that first round range. But I was really high on Kenneth Grant, and it was just another one of those players that I really wanted to love as a nose tackle. I love my big body guys, but he dropped, I think, from like 13 all the way to 28. So he might have had one of the biggest
Dude,
drops
yeah,
of
he ended
the
up, I think,
film.
at 31 for me.
Yeah, so we're hitting the ballpark there, which is good. But Aaron, I would love to hear maybe first why you have Derek Harmon as a first rounder. He's number 4 for me, so we're not far off. But
Well,
I
Tyler
think
has
he's
him
in a
as
different tier.
DT2.
I do, and I'm
I,
pulling
I
up where I have him in the big board. I have him
So-
at 25 right now overall, DT2.
Part of my doing my research for this is I look at where everyone else has players, and I have I think 5 different lists here. The consensus from NFL Mock Draft Database has Harmon 29 overall at DT4. Daniel Jeremiah has him at DT2 at 26 overall. So that means the gap between DT1 and DT2 is 4 and 26, a 22 place drop. PFF has Derek Harmon at DT4 at 30. Danny Kelly at the Ringer has him at 31 at defensive tackle 5. And then Mel Kiper has him at 4 overall on the defensive tackle ranking. So I think this is consensus, right?
Sounds like I'm lower than consensus then.
That was the point of me saying all that. Not to
I have him at 47.
You're lower.
Oh, and in terms of guys that
Yeah.
are really high on him, Nate Tice in his latest top 50 had him at 16. That's the highest I've seen of any of the guys. But
I'll add Tice to the list of names. I'll write down for next time.
yeah, that's the highest I've seen him is 16, and then it seems like most people do have him somewhere in that 20s range.
Yeah, and I went into this not knowing a lot about Harmon. I knew he was a three-year starter at Oregon, and I was just like, okay, cool, great. This is kind of sick. And then I kept watching, and I fell in love. Like, this kid he's the kind of player that I just want. He's a pass rusher, and it's not often you can get a true 6'5", 313 interior pass rusher who looks and plays as disruptive as he is. And for that and that alone, I'm just like, I want it. This is the kind of guy who just gets in the middle and just, I can't say the term I thought of on air, but F's S up at all times. It's great.
He is one of the biggest risers in this entire year. When he transferred into Oregon from Michigan State, scouts were saying, hey, carrying bad weight, not great work ethic. And then he got into Eugene and, dude, turned into a different person. Dan Lanning and the guys are able to churn out line of scrimmage talent right now.
Dan Lanning's got issues, but developing defensive linemen is not one of them.
Not one of them. He had the most pressures of any defensive tackle last year in the regular season.
What was it,
49?
49? I thought it was 55.
Well, you might have been
55.
doing including postseason. I did just the regular season. Because
I'm
with the playoff now, it's tough because
Hey,
some guys are playing 4 more games. And it's
we
like,
include
how
numbers
are-
that help our argument here. So it's 55, Tyler.
But even the regular season, 49 was the most in college football for the regular
Right.
season. Really long arms at 34 and 3/8 inches. And the best part is you actually see him use that. He does lock guys out and use that length to create advantages for himself to be able to toss guys. I think he's really quick for his size as well and really athletic. So the way that he, A, has just shown a ton of growth, and then B, was really productive and uses the skills that he has.
Yeah.
I really like Harmon.
I think he's the kind of guy where I just watch him and I'm like, what am I missing? Why is everyone else so low on him? And then I went back and realized that no, everyone else is seeing what I'm seeing. I was the one that was low on him, and I'm catching up to everyone else. 4'9", 540, which is in the 82nd percentile. Wingspan of 84 inches, 34 and 3/8 arms. And I got to be honest, this guy feels prototypical. And watching him, I'm going to say it. I get the same feeling I got watching Jared Verse. I'm like, okay, this just feels too easy. What am I missing?
I wouldn't say prototypical. He does have outstanding length, but I think for a D tackle that I'm looking to put in the trenches, I'm probably looking towards the 6'3", 6'4" guys.
Go get Grant. If you want a 6'3", 6'4"
I
defensive
know,
tackle,
but
go get Grant. He'll run stuff for you.
I will say Harmon did amazing in Oregon. He did lead the FBS in pass rush win rate for IDLs, which I wanted to add on with the total pressures thing. So he did phenomenal, productive. I actually thought he was not a great athlete. I saw at times where his athletic ability sometimes limited the plays, and on top of that, because he is a little taller, I don't think he was very situationally aware that he would stand up and it would impact his power and his anchor when trying to rush the passer. Rush the passer.
Dude,
I'm really
pass
struggling
rush
with that
is
tonight.
brutal, and we're gonna be saying it all night.
I know.
And who is
On
it? There's
top of
someone.
that, just pulling. I feel like he's kind of not nimble and quick on his feet when it comes to that. So he was very fast. Again, the 40 times showed that. But I would like to see a little bit more in that lateral quickness area of his game.
I think another knock on him is his tackling. Right, he just has an inability to wrap and fall and like do the death roll the Gators and freaking linebackers need to have.
Yeah, he gets to the spot. He just has to actually make the play.
Yeah.
Totally get that. Right now, he is very much a 3-tech because he's
Mm-hmm.
not amazing at holding down gaps against these big time double teams. I'd say his power is slightly above average right now, but is not something he sees. He wins with lateral quickness. He wins by hand usage, which I think is another good one. But I like that you highlighted that, Ryan. That was one of my cons. Probably the biggest con for me is that his leverage and his pad level is pretty consistently high. And I wonder
6'6", right? Or 6'5"?
6'5".
6'5", yeah. And then I wonder as he continues to develop his body more, because he did shed a lot of bad weight, but I think there is still a little more that he could do to fine tune his body. I wonder if that helps a little with the explosiveness and if that helps with his leverage to keep him down and keep him a little more looser in the hips.
I just saw his hometown, Detroit, Michigan, and my first thought was, oh, he could fall very easily to the Lions at what are they, 28? I like
Very
that.
easily.
I'm going to mock that next time. All right, Walter Nolen, who I have as my number 2 tackle overall. Tyler, you have him at 3, right?
I'm at 3, yeah, and he's going to
Ryan,
be 26 overall in my big board, so right next to Derek Harmon.
Ryan has him at 2. Yeah, I'm going to have him and Harmon probably back to back as well. I just feel like there's a lot of good D tackles in this class, and Nolen is consensus. I don't want to say consensus because Grant is kind of polarizing, but I think he's a little underweight, right? 296 at 6'4". Are we worried about that going into this, or does he just make up for it at every turn?
I think he added a little bit of weight on actually before the combine and his measurement. I think he was playing at around like 285 or 290 during the season, whereas I think Kenneth Grant was said to be like even as high as 330, but as low as like 315, 320. So it is a little funny to see them at the exact same height and weight. But my notes on him, again, number 2 D tackle in this class for me personally, short arms, but it doesn't show on film. He's able to actively engage with his blocker, and I don't think it's really a con for him.
He makes up for short arms with quickness.
Yeah, he knows his strengths and he knows his weaknesses, and he makes sure not to make it a weakness.
And if we're talking about making up for it, dude, he has violent hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When guards try to touch him, he says nope and and gets them off really quick.
And I have seen him used all over the D line, so he was effective all over the field. Again, just someone that you really want on your team. I did see, actually, I think a few days ago, apparently Todd McShay said that he had some character concerns. So again,
that's been the chatter through the process is that
Yeah.
he's not always locked in. That was even something at Texas A&M. He originally went to Texas A&M, then transferred to Ole Miss.
5-star recruit before that.
Right.
Yeah.
He was the number 1 recruit in his class. This guy is
Right.
ultra talented. But the chatter was, hey, he's not really hitting his potential right now because he's not always locked into practice, weight room, film, that kind of thing. So obviously we don't actually have any knowledge of that, but that is something that has been talked about.
Could see a slide.
Yeah, and the concern with like issues like that or little mini red flags like that is it's the Captain America thing, right? The serum doesn't make them great; it makes them more of who you are. The NFL doesn't make you; it just doesn't just fix you; it makes you more of who you are. Micah Parsons, he was good, and the NFL made him great because it made him more of his goodness, right? He is the kind of guy who I somehow got better in the NFL. That's the thing I'm kind of worried about when it comes to all these little mini red flags. Is the NFL and the money that comes with it and the travel and the lifestyle going to amplify these little issues, or are your teammates and is the maturity around you going to shrink them down to the point where they're not even an issue?
All comes down to personal issues.
Well, and the culture too, because man, if you go to a really good organization, we were just talking about the Lions. If the Lions get him, I feel really good about him getting with Aiden Hutchinson, DJ Reader's a vet,
Right.
and just that staff in general, and going, hey, you know who else had some weird character concern type stuff coming out? Jamison Williams, and he has made himself a very good player so far, even fighting through some injuries. So someone like that, we've seen the Eagles do it with Jalen Carter. There's these organizations right now that you have a really strong culture and you can stand to bring that in. It's just if you're going to go to a team that doesn't have as strong a culture, think of a million of the guys picking in the top 10, then it's tough to want to bring that in and say, hey, is he going to completely flip our locker room for the worse?
I could see him really going as high as maybe number 11 to the Niners, or another good place he could go is to the Falcons. I mean, they just lost Grady Jarrett.
Mm-hmm.
So there's plenty of teams in need of a D tackle
I think
very early.
Morris is a good enough defensive play caller to make. I think he could really exemplify what Nolen is good at and use him in situations where he could succeed.
Because Nolen he's pretty scheme specific in terms
Right.
of where he needs to go, because we talked about how athletic he is, how violent his hands are, great pass rusher, high motor. He also is not going to lock down a gap while getting double teamed. He's not this guy that just is able to hold something down, which is fine. You don't have to play that way in every single defense. He's way more of a gap shooter. So he will be a little specific in terms of where I think he needs to go.
There's a lot of different flavors of defensive tackle. The three techs, like we talked about with Nolen and with Harmon, and then there's the run stoppers like Kenneth Walker, who it seems like we have different rankings on him. I have him 4 on my defensive tackle rankings. That feels about where we have him. Ryan, you have him at 3?
Who, Kenneth Grant?
Kenneth Grant.
Yes, I do have him at 3.
And Tyler, you have him in a completely different tier as Nolen and Harmon.
I do, because speaking of the big boys, we're getting into a couple of them here. I have Tyleek Williams as DT4, Kenneth Grant as DT5. And
You're
they're
not the
actually both
first
next
person.
to each other.
You're not the first person I've seen that high on Tyleek, and I want to get to that.
Love him. Oh, my goodness.
I feel like Grant is good as a run stopper, very, very good as a run stopper, very, very good at staying in lanes. But that's about it, right? That you're drafting him to do that, and I don't know how high his ceiling is, and that's why I have him at 4. Because he does do one thing really, really well. I would say almost to an elite level in this class. Almost, borderline. But is there something I'm missing with Grant? He just kind of has one move, and that is plug up lanes.
I wrote down he is just really inconsistent, was the word I kept getting from his tape, is that there are plays where he wrecks offensive line single-handedly. Like, he gets off the ball, he's able to toss guys out of the way. You can't do anything with him as a center because he is so big and so strong. And then sometimes he just comes off the ball really lazy, and he gets taken up by double teams and gets pushed out of gaps. And so that's something that's just really concerning for me when this is your thing, because he right now has very little pass rush juice. I'm not sure he's really going to be able to ever develop that. And so I need you to be on your P's and Q's in the run stopping game, then, where I'm saying, hey, I got this guy who he's going to take 2 guys to block every time. He's not getting moved. And right now I don't see that. The other thing that made it tough for me is we've been sold on him as this freak athlete. And at least in testing, it didn't come out that way. Now, he wasn't bad. His RAS ended up being somewhere in the 8s, I think, his relative athletic score. But, man, the way people were talking about it, I was ready for it to be 9.8, 9.9, and it wasn't that. And so if I'm being sold on his potential because he's inconsistent right now, I want that potential to be really high. And both from the tape and then the athletic testing, I couldn't see this massively high ceiling to bet on.
The ceiling I have for him is current Jordan Davis. Like, we all had this idea of what Jordan Davis could be coming out of the draft, how he is this incredibly large, incredibly athletic defensive tackle who at the moment had just been a run stopper. For the Eagles right now, he is a situational run stopper. He doesn't play every down. He comes in when they need to stop the run, and he plays really well. He is an absolutely elite filler of gaps. And I think that's what Grant could be if he reaches his best. The thing is, that's situational. You need a team that's like, we need to stop the run. We are absolutely porous against it to need Grant for him to go somewhere in as high as the 20s.
Yeah, and that was, again, part of where I had to drop him. He's a pure nose tackle. Again, Aaron said very situational, so it's going to even lead to the question, do we use a first-round pick on him? He will need development and coaching. I'm not going to say he's like a developmental prospect. There is a developmental prospect in this class, and I will get to that. But coaching will be very heavy with his technique. I saw some instances where he was getting off the snap and he was kind of doing this thing, flailing his arms before like he even does anything at all. And I'm like, you're not chopping or swiping. Like, what are you doing moving your arms? You look like
weird.
a chicken with your head cut off.
It is weird because he's got the snaps where he does fire off and you see him explode into guys and he's really strong. But then you're right, because then the inconsistency hits, and I don't know if he's tired or if it's a mental thing, because you're right. There will be the reps where he stands straight up and he's trying to throw his arms and he gets pushed out of the way.
Yeah. 3-star prospect, and now he has turned himself into a first or second round defensive tackle. That in and of itself is something to celebrate, and yet he's not going to go top 15. Let's keep it trucking. I think that's the top 4 we've hit pretty handily. There's a teardrop for me after Grant, and I call it drunken first rounders and second rounders. I'm inventing the term drunken first rounders, where these guys are second rounders that if a GM gets drunk could take them in the first. Tyler, you talked about Tyleik Williams. I have him at 7. Ahead of him, I have Darius Alexander from Toledo and Alfred Collins from Texas, and then Tyleik Williams from Ohio State, and those are my 3 in this tier at 5, 6, 7. This feels like a smaller tier than it could be. But
yeah, I think this is a really deep class. I think the first rounders are possibly Mason Graham, Walter Nolen, Derek Harmon, in whatever order you want to put those. And then I could see either Tyleik Williams or Kenneth Grant sneaking in the back end. Tyleik Williams, actually, he hurt his quad running the 40 in his pro day.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
So originally it looked bad. I thought he tore his ACL or something.
Right.
From what people were tweeting, it seemed like he just had ice on his quad. So I'm hoping he just strained it or something, and it won't actually affect his draft stock. Because, man, is he a really good player. Mm-hmm. This is the ideal body type for nose in the 6'4 range, 320. And he just moves way faster than someone his size should. There are just very few humans that are that big and move that quickly off the ball. I wrote this down when I was watching him at first. I was 5 plays in the first Oregon game during the regular season. And he had already tossed Oregon's 2 guards to the side 3 times out of the 5 plays, where he just takes them and he tosses them to the side like they're little children. He is so disruptive and so strong. His short area quickness is way better than you would expect for a guy that size. He's able to get around guards, not just go through them. And that's where, with that short area quickness, and then I think he's got a little more consistent power in pushing the pocket than Kenneth Grant, I can see just a tad of pass rush juice there. It's not going to be great. That will never be his A-plus trait. But I think he can do it a little bit. You see it at times against against teams like Penn State and like Oregon, these big boys. Now, he does get gassed a lot. Like, he gets tired. He's a big boy. So that also will limit his role in terms of snaps he can play a bit. And then while I think he can have a little bit of pass rush juice, like I said, he's just never going to be that type of guy where you're counting on that. So that's my Tyleik Williams rant, because, man, he is such a good player. He has been one of my favorites since it started. And he's a consensus top 50 guy. But, man, I think he should possibly sneak into the back end of the first round if I was a GM that needed somebody to stop the run.
So say you are who's really bad against the run this year? The Commanders? Is that accurate? Or am I just making that up?
Well, Carolina was the worst. So
Carolina was the worst, but they're too early for this prompt.
Let's just second round pick though, because they do have a second question mark.
The Panthers, yeah, I think they have at least one.
Yeah, I think for them in the what would that be if they're the 8th pick? That would be in the 40s, low 40s, high 30s. I think that's a perfect range for him.
If you are sitting at 32 and you're the Eagles, and hypothetically the Eagles have had the worst run defense in the history of the NFL last season, they need a run stopper.
No.
Who do you draft? Wait, what?
I'm going to stop you right there. So I actually had Tyleik Williams.
Hold up. You didn't even hear the rest of my prompt.
I don't need to.
That's not how this works. Who do you draft at 32 if you need a run stopper? Grant, Williams, or insert DT here?
Dude, I like Williams more.
Okay.
And I get that he might have a little lower of a ceiling, but I don't think it's that much lower. And I think right now, when you watch the film, he is a better player.
Not even remotely. I have Grant much higher. I guess I'm kind of worried for this list now because apparently I'm a little farther off from you guys than I thought.
You have been Ryan, I love you dearly, right? You have been farther off from us about a whole lot of things this entire process.
But I've been more right.
Just because that's your last name does not mean that you're more correct than us.
No,
I guess we'll find out, though.
Yeah, we will.
3 years in the future when you can accurately assess a draft class.
So I have Tyreek at 61 for various reasons. He's actually my D tackle 7.
That's where he's at for me as well, by the way. I like him. He's 7. He feels like a one-dimensional kind of player.
Yeah, again, I think he's a pure run guy. It didn't do a whole lot in the pass rush. A lot of people were knocking him for his little side swipe. I mean, again, we didn't see much beyond that. I think he had like the 3rd best run grade in FBS. So again, this guy is very one-dimensional in my opinion. And if you need a run stopper, yes, he would fill that need. But I think Kenneth Grant, high risk, high reward. But Tyreek would be on the lower end of the reward side. So I think because of that specifically, I had to drop him. Again, I think I had him mid 50s. So it wasn't a huge drop at all, but I really did not know how one-dimensional this was. Some of the other notes that I had was can sometimes pop up. Actually, some comps I saw and I thought were great were Ali McNeil and DJ Reader.
DJ Reader is the one that I had for him. So I really like that comp. And guys, DJ Reader is a Pro Bowl, all pro kind of guy. Like, I feel like we are maybe not properly rating how valuable a really good run stopping defensive tackle is. You know how much that allows you to do?
I don't know who
defense?
we is, but it's not me.
Yeah.
I'm just
Mason Graham's number 1, buddy.
Yeah, but you're like, he stops the run really well, but he's also
and has 0 pass rush.
And maybe that's where we disagree, because I just see him getting the quarterback against, again, teams like Oregon and teams like Penn State. And so I think that's going to translate. And is it Derek Harmon? Is it Walter Nolen? No. It's not even Mason Graham. But to just say he's got 0 and then while also being an elite run stopper, dude, that's valuable.
Which, to Tyler's credit, he's not the only one who thinks that. Danny Kelly from The Ringer has him at 30. PFF has him at 37. But then Consensus has him in the 50s, and then Kuiper doesn't even have him in his top 10 of interior defensive linemen. Wait, no, he does. I was lying. He has him at 6. I can't read. I really thought I just couldn't see that. Jeez. But yeah, so that having him in the 6 to 7 in your interior defensive lineman range is about consensus. That doesn't mean consensus is right. Consensus tends to be wrong quite often. But that is what the other experts are thinking currently. Moving on from Tyreek, unless you guys want to keep yelling at each other, which I'm all for. That's good content. Alfred Collins from Texas. I have him at 6, right behind Darius Alexander from Toledo. Collins is an absolute freak. 6'6", 332, and I feel like he just moves at an unreal... Ryan, if you're saying something, you're muted.
No, I was counting. He's 11 for me.
He's 8.
Really?
He's 8 for me. So.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I'm high on him.
Yeah.
All right. I'll take it. I'll sit there. 6'6", 332, and he had like an 8-foot broad jump at 332 pounds, a vertical jump of 26 inches, which isn't the best. He's not as explosive in the legs as I wanted him to be.
I actually dropped him outside of. All right, I will preface. I
go for it.
Heavily took into combine stuff more than I should have, and like it was the number one thing we said we would not do before the combine. It was like we will not drop people or rise people just because they're combine.
I said that I would take combine measurements, and
yeah,
like
I stuck with that and ran. And guys like Ty Robinson, dude, I put him in like the high 50s.
Ty Robinson is flying up boards right now.
I watched this film. He went straight back down to the 90s.
I was going to say,
Alfred Collins, because of his combine testing, I had him actually outside my top 100. I had like a separate list of just guys in the 100s.
Right.
And I actually had him like right outside like 104, 105. But yeah, I went back and again, film is king and it will always trump
which is
anything.
why I have him at DT6.
Well, I put him up at 80. So you, again, remember I said like my tier list, it's just the hall of mid that like we had for the quarterbacks.
Yeah.
It's from like 45, I think, to like 87.
So what do you not like about Collins besides all the issues like him being old, his borderline inability to run very far, his kind of one-dimensional aspect? What other is there any other weakness you'd like to hit on?
Well, I didn't know actually about the age.
Yeah, he's gonna turn I think 25. No, 24. He's turning 24
because Darius Alexander is actually going to be 25.
Darius Alexander went to Toledo.
August.
I have no doubt that he's old as hell. Get out.
Yeah, he is insanely old, and when we get to him, I will talk about that. But again, so Alfred Collins, another pure run guy. Don't see any pass rush upside.
He only had 6 pressures last year.
That's
hey,
atrocious.
Room to improve. Room to improve. We're fine.
He's not athletic. The first step in his stance was terrible.
I was saying, what first step, Ryan? Because I didn't see one.
Exactly. He kind of did this like little stutter step thing that we talked about with like Mike Green. Like it's like a false first step.
Right.
So I don't really know what's happening there. His stance looks ugly. I don't know why he's rushing from outside the tackles.
And Ryan hates his mom. That's what it sounds like right now. You're just going in on him.
I don't know what this is, and I have him right above Deion Walker. So, guys,
funnily enough, I also have him pretty much right above Deion Walker.
I feel like this is a project and a half.
Real big boy. I'll go with the positives here. He's really big and really strong, and so that's where he is able to hold down gaps effectively. He did it in the SEC against teams like Alabama, against teams like Georgia, with these really good interior players. He's able to hold up against them.
Quietly moving Collins to 7 and Tyler to 6 because Tyler convinced me.
Because he's not. I think he's not as good at that as Tyleek is, as Kenneth Grant is. Even with some of the inconsistencies we talked about. So
sometimes I just need you to say what I'm internally thinking, and I don't want to believe. I need you to agree with my internal monologue before I move somebody.
Listen, it's helpful to talk to people, no joke. And kind of like you said, people are able to verbalize thoughts better sometimes for different prospects. You get to do that for other people. So yeah, you guys have been helpful with that, definitely. So I have Alfred Collins at 8 for me. I didn't have him in my top 50. He will probably make the top 100 because he is a solid player. I think he will be a useful player in the NFL. He's just very much not going to be a star.
He feels like a plug-and-play day one role player. And he's going to get better as a role player, but I don't think he's ever going to break out of that mold.
Role player as in rotational player?
Yeah. Role player as in he could be one of 3 defensive tackles on a good defensive tackle line.
Could is the key word there.
Again, that's his ceiling. But we're getting to guys we're getting to second and third round guys that need to have something to really break the mold, which is one of the reasons I love Alexander. And he is my defensive tackle 5, Darius Alexander out of Toledo, who, mind you, has something. He is an absolutely freak athlete. 6'4", 305. Could probably cut some of that weight. I don't want to say he could, but I think he's the perfect 3-tech size and build. 4'9", 540. A perfect wingspan of 82 and 2/8. 10-yard split of 1.7, which is excellent, and a broad jump of 111 inches. I need to convert that into feet because I'm really bad at that. 111 divided by 12. He has 9 and a quarter broad jump at 300 pounds. He's a freak, dude. He moves. And that's one of the things I love about him is if you're going to draft somebody and take a shot on somebody, you take a shot on a guy who can move at his size like he can.
A lot of potential. I also didn't know he was 25, but that's not great. Really twitchy. I am worried about the consistent comp he went up against. When I watch him play Miami, Ohio, it is a lot different tape than when I watch him play Illinois. And you might be going...
He's just a small school guy. That's what it is, Tyler. You're big Florida. You hate small schools. That's what it is.
No, man, because listen, again, we talked about it when we talked about Quinion with some of the... I forget who we were talking about in this class, but small schools play big schools. And
I think it was Mike Green from when he was at Marshall.
Maybe. And so when they play big schools, Mike Green had a really good game against Ohio State. There were some run-stopping things that concerned me, but in terms of rushing the passer, got after Ohio State. And Darius Alexander, when I watched him play Illinois in 2023, was getting pretty handled by an Illinois team that went 6-6.
So, yes, Darius Alexander will be 25. So that was the absolute biggest knock you could have. And this is why, because if you do end up drafting him in the first round, which I would laugh hysterically if you do, think about
By the way,
him being on a
CJ Stroud is 23.
Yeah. It's funny because if he gets the 5th-year option, he will be 30 before he gets a second contract. That's really, really, really bad because he might only get 2 contracts in that lifetime. So,
He's a day 2 guy though,
Well,
but that's
I was going to say, if you're drafting him in the 3rd round, that's fine. You don't
Right.
care. You want him to just play out his contract. If he's going to be even 2nd round, that's a problem.
The absolute earliest I would even consider drafting him is early to mid round 2. But I do have him 75 on my big board and 9th in the D tackle class.
I got him at 8. I actually just realized I wanted to flip him and Alfred Collins before we started this, and I didn't yet. So I have Alexander at 8. That would put him about in that similar range of like the 60s, 70s, low 80s. So kind of right there with you. I think he can have a really good role as a pass rushing defensive tackle, but even in some of those games against Miami, Ohio, you see him just getting moved by guys in the run game. I think that's a little concerning when it comes to his overall play.
Yeah, one of the best pass rushers in the class.
For sure.
So no knock, but in the run game, it is concerning. I feel like sometimes he's not even looking for the ball carrier. He just gets caught up on the blocks.
Right. He's a situational pass rusher, which is okay. And that's the kind of thing, like, if you're going to draft somebody, at least have them do something very well. And
right, have an elite trait.
Right. Moving on, I have a tier 4 here, and that tier 4 consists of TJ Sanders from South Carolina, Deone Walker from Kentucky. I'm just going to call him Walker. Dion? Man, I butchered that. Sorry, Dion. Dion Walker from Kentucky, and then Joshua Farmer from Florida State. Yeah, it's all good. Can you tell I watched film without sound? What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. The thing I noticed about Farmer, and I want to get into that, he was 43rd on Daniel Jeremiah's big board, which puts him at defensive tackle 5. 4? 5? I can't count. 5. DT 5 for DJ. And then the consensus has him around 89, which is about where I have him. What?
Aaron, I have 17 D tackles on this list, and he is not
didn't make
one
it.
of them.
Wait, you have 17 and he didn't make it? That feels like an issue on your part.
Nope.
You watched the film? It's a lot of silence.
That's because we're talking about all the bad guys. When are we going to get to the good guys like TJ Sanders, buddy?
I just said I was talking about Farmer because Farmer made a list that I thought was intriguing, and he's a player that I think is he's divisive. He's a guy. He's
divisive.
He's got really good size, and going into this year, he was thought to maybe sneak into the first round. Honestly, he was the Derek Harmon candidate, where if he had a really good season this year, could have snuck into the first round. He, unfortunately, like all of Florida State this past year, didn't rip bozos over there. 2 wins last year.
Tyler, that's a check in the jar.
2 wins, one of them against Cal by 5 points, the other one not a Power 4 team. That was a bad Florida State team last year, and don't you forget it.
That's one in the jar for Tyler. That's your first. Congratulations.
Yeah. But
man, I didn't see that coming.
he is the perfect late round swing. Really traitsy guy. Did show some, I would say, on the film, but it just was not very consistent. You take him in the 4th, 5th, 6th and see if he can turn into something.
Right. That's why I was confused as to why DJ had him in the 50s. He was at like the top 50 players. That was why I brought this up, and I wanted to start with this, is because I have him in like the 80s, 90s, 100s. I haven't finalized my board since doing this, but it feels like he's just a dude. And I was confused as if there was something I was missing that you guys saw. And basically, I was just like, you see anything? NFLDraftBuzz.com has him at 12, right? That feels about consensus. Ryan, you just don't have him in your top 17?
Nope.
Would
Guys, can we please get to TJ Sanders? I've been waiting.
You got to elaborate on this. We can't just skip over why you hate somebody.
No, he already said he didn't watch him. TJ Sanders, let's go.
All right, let's do it. Fine, TJ Sanders, South Carolina.
We work full-time jobs.
All right, I am trademarking this right now. TJ Sanders is the Walmart Mason Graham. I might even say Target Mason Graham, because
So
measurable.
What does that make Mason Graham? Where's he from?
Just Mason Graham.
Yeah,
Just
Mason Graham.
All right, fine. He's Louis Vuitton.
So the only things like Mason Graham was about 32 arm, and his hand size was actually 9 1/8. But TJ Sanders, very similar height and weight, 6'4", 297. But TJ Sanders' arm length was a little bit longer, 33 1/8, and hand was another inch bigger. It was 10 1/4. But quite literally, I kid you not, TJ Sanders pretty much word for word everything Mason Graham is, just at a lesser level.
Right.
And I mean that, like, can't take on double blocks very well. Very good run defender. We didn't see a ton of pass rush from him, but the upside is there. So we saw the hands fighting. We saw the motor. We saw the lateral quickness. Did play at a much lower weight in season than Mason Graham. Again, I talked about Mason Graham was in that 330, 315 range, anywhere in between there. No one really knows, but I think TJ Sanders was a little bit on the lighter side, and then he bulked up for the combine. Again, he can put on a lot more weight because he's a little bit taller, a much bigger wingspan. So I genuinely think TJ Sanders, I don't know why people are sleeping on him, but like I understand he has his deficiencies, but word for word, Walmart/Target, Mason Graham.
I don't know if people are sleeping on him as much as you think they are. Where would you have him on your board? Give me a range.
I have him number 5 in the class. On the big board, though, I have him 54. So almost cracking the top 50.
Consensus is 65 according to the mock draft database, which I found today. I don't know how I never have. They compiled so many awesome things. They just do what we do for our consensus board, for all the consensus boards out there, which is why I'm referencing it so much tonight. Sanders, they have him at 65. That feels about consensus, Ryan. I think I don't want to say, I think you just don't realize that other people like this guy too.
I just loved that I finally clicked the dots, and I was like, who does this guy remind me of? Oh, that's right. The guy that I watched earlier, Mason Graham.
Tyler?
Sanders is fine. Like, he's... I don't think... He doesn't do anything elite, but he does a lot of things good. And so I think he will be a good player. Be taken late second, early third.
I'd rather have somebody do one or two things elite than a guy who does a few things decently, which is why I have guys like Alexander and Collins and Williams above Sanders.
All right, guys, it's time.
Deion Walker?
It's time. No, I refuse.
What?
I excuse myself from Deion Walker.
Okay, are we just going to ignore Walker and Farmer entirely?
No, we can talk about Walker after this. But
okay, go ahead.
My guy. We haven't done my guy in a while.
CJ West.
I'm going to think Norman Lott.
CJ West.
Dude, you put me on CJ West, I will say. He's actually just behind TJ Sanders.
Let's go, because he's a beast. He is so strong. He's only 6'1", but that's awesome because he has leverage on everyone and uses it at all times. Blows up centers and guards, tossing guys in the Michigan game. Anecdotally, I was watching Michigan play Indiana to watch Colston Loveland, and I couldn't stop watching CJ West because he blew up all of the plays that Colston Loveland was in on, which that's another thing for Michigan not being very good this year, but really agile, violent with his hands, and with just the pop he's able to put into defense or offensive tackles, His strike and shed's really good. Pass rush, he has it. He can get around. He was getting around on stunts. He was really slithery between guys, tackles and guards when he's on stunts. He's able to slip through those double teams. Man, he is just a really good ball player. He did it time and time again against Michigan, against Ohio State. He was balling out in a game where they were getting crushed and he was making plays. So CJ West is one of my guys this year, should definitely be a second round pick, and he's going to be a top 50 player for me.
CJ West, 4.95 40, 33-inch vert, 6'1", 316 out of Indiana. Is not the most loved prospect. Tyler, you would take a bullet for this kid?
Oh, yeah. I'm so high. I think I'm trying to remember. I was scrolling because I was trying to find where people had him, and one person I think was saying he was a fringe top 50 guy. I want to say it was Dane Brugler, but don't quote me on that. But pretty much
Quote,
everyone else is not
Tyler
super
Hill
high.
says Dane Brugler has CJ West top 50. Ryan,
56.
on your board.
Right behind TJ Sanders. And
Come on.
I will admit it.
TJ
Tyler
West
is the
killed.
one that put me on CJ West. So
I'm
kudos
not
to
going
him.
to say where I have him just so that Tyler doesn't get a bigger
Yeah,
head.
dude, you have him at 120, whatever.
I have him at 9 right behind DJ Sanders.
That's
Oh,
actually
jeez.
funny.
So I will say, again, does some things great, some things not so great. One of the things he's fantastic is hand fighting. I love that out of him. That was one of the reasons Max Crosby got drafted so high out of Eastern Michigan. But for nose tackle, a little undersized, yes. Probably going to put on some more weight in the first few years of his NFL career.
And I wonder, he played nose tackle for Indiana. I wonder if he's a 3-tech in the league.
He very well could be. So that is a question that I also have. I don't know about his first step. That was something that was concerning. But I'm also like, well, so what? He ran a 4.95 at 316 pounds. So also very impressive.
Relative athletic score in the 9s, so he's explosive.
Yeah. We have been talking about defensive tackles for the last hour. So I'm going to list off a few names, and if you guys want to highlight a player, let's do it. But there's a bunch of other guys here that I just have as honorable mentions or just the unranked guys that you should know about that your team might take. Josh Farmer and Deion Walker, we've already discussed. Walker is crazy tall. Farmer is just also there. Shamar Turner, Texas A&M. Ty Robinson, Nebraska.
Let's stop on Shamar Turner because that is my DT7. He's my other, I think, guy that I'm probably higher on relative to consensus.
Definitely.
Because he is another guy who's really twitchy, just explosive, and he found a stress fracture in his foot. He was going to be in the Senior Bowl, wasn't because they found the stress fracture, which makes so much sense to me because when I watched the Notre Dame tape, which is the first game of the year, when I'm assuming he's healthy, he was wrecking the game. Notre Dame had to double team him because guys that were going one-on-one with Shamar Turner couldn't stop him at all. It was amazing to watch. And then I turned on the South Carolina tape. Completely different player, except in spurts. He would have one play where he was really good, really quick off the ball, dominating, and then he'd have 2 or 3 plays where it looked like he was taking it off. And I'm like, what happened? And I wonder if he broke his foot. And it's just as simple as that. And so this to me is a bet on the upside I saw early in the year when I'm assuming he was healthy. And I can just explain away, hey, he didn't look as good in some of the other games that he played. And it wasn't a competition thing because Notre Dame had a really good offensive line. It was actually just an injury thing. Should be healthy by all accounts. It's not a surgical thing. You just got to recover from a stress fracture and think you could be a really good player.
We have too many Texas A&M defensive linemen in this draft, and I am going to riot. There's 3 that could go top 50. I mean, Ole Miss has a similar problem with Walter Nolen, JJ Pegues, and Princely Umanamielen.
Quick college football thing, Ole Miss returning less than 50% of their production from last year. So worried a little bit about the drop-off because their transfer portal class also wasn't as great as it normally is. Just keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, you notice that when you're starting to build big boards and realize how many of these guys say Ole Miss at the end. It's a good draft class for them. Like, to their credit, they had a good team. Jackson Dart being the big name, right? I don't know if that helps them or hurts them or what have you. Other names, Ty Robinson out of Nebraska, getting buzz. Kuiper has him at 10. The Ringer has him at 68 overall. PFF has him at 109. So there is disparity. Or no, that's the consensus. Consensus has him at 109. He's like rising, falling. Omar Normanlot out of Tennessee.
Okay, pause. He's actually one of the guys that fell this time around for me.
He did for me too, yeah.
I had him in the top 50. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I will preface that right now.
We're just going to take the I'm sorries for the rest of the year. Jalen Royals never plays a snap. I can't wait to see what happens.
Okay, don't be praying on Jalen Royals' downfall, dude.
All right, so Omar Norman-Lott, again, I had him in the top 50. Very undersized, didn't test the combine, so I thought I would love his film. Didn't really love it. Put it plain and simple. I know we're running short on time. he has some pass rush upside. So there is that. I don't think he could pan out, but in realistic terms, he'll probably get drafted early to mid third round. It really depends on what team he goes to and what coaching he gets will determine his trajectory if they can maximize his skills. Because again, doesn't really have the physical traits, so it's the technical skills that he does have that you're trying to utilize. But it was just one of those guys that was like, I really wanted to love him. Again, I've even talked about an earlier podcast that sometimes he was listed as an edge in the class, and I didn't really see that, but he is
6'2",
definitely an
291.
IDL.
Yeah. What was tough for me, the Bama game was just a really tough watch. Like the entire game, I wrote down maybe 2 plays that he kind of did something, and he was just getting handled the rest of the time. And that's important because who's on the interior of Bama's offensive line? Tyler Booker. That's who you're going to be going up against in the league, right? I like their other guard, too, the guy who played right guard for them, number 77. And then Parker Brailsford is a good center. So that's a good interior offensive line he was going up against. Didn't make a ton of plays. So that was the biggest thing for me is when you're playing comp like that, and I don't see you popping. I'm watching other guys on your team to try and get ahead on tape study for them because you're just not there. Never a good sign.
No. I'm going to keep trucking it down that list. That was Norman Lott. Jordan Phillips out of Maryland.
No clue.
No, I'm in the same boat. He's just a name that I saw, and I need to watch film on him later.
But you're about to say Aeneas Peebles out of Virginia
am.
Tech. I do have something
Yeah.
there. Really good day 3 swing. If you need a pass rush defensive tackle, really, really good pass rusher, very quick, violent with his hands, just happens to be 6'1", 290, and really small. He had over a 90 pass rush grade in the last 2 years. He's the only defensive tackle to do that, according to PFF. So really good pass rusher. If you want somebody to come in sub packages in 3rd and 10s and get after the pass from the inside, he is perfect. He is just only going to be able to do that.
I really thought I was like one of the only ones, but guys, I really love the Hokies this year. They just have a solid class.
Yep.
I would like to say that Peebles is my diamond in the rough for this D tackle class, but I don't know.
For sure.
I would like to coin that right now.
Of the day 3 guys, he's the one I'm most confident in having a role in the NFL.
I have one more name that I think will have a role in the NFL. His kind of role is up for debate. JJ Pegues out of Ole Miss, who did a little. Ryan's already shaking his head. I don't care.
Oh, he's a good player.
Yeah, he's a good player. He's a little bit of everything, right? The thing that everyone talked about the entire time he was on air at the Combine. What?
Okay, we were just bashing people for being good at a little bit of everything and not having one good trait.
I'm not talking.
The
Don't include me in that.
Tyler actually said it himself.
Don't include me in that.
Inconsistency.
This kid legit played on offense, dude. That's what I'm talking about with a little bit of everything. I wasn't talking.
Fun fact: number 9 tight end in his recruiting class went to Auburn as a tight end, and
That's
then
what I'm saying.
switched to D tackle and then transferred to Ole Miss. So really good athlete.
Ole Miss used him on offense. They used him, I believe, as a halfback at times and as a tight end at times and as a defensive tackle. He's just the kind of athlete that you just want on your team, and you're like, I'll figure out what to do with you later. Just come to my roster first, which is why he's a name that I thought we would bring up. One last name is Yahya Black out of Iowa, who Kuiper has in the top 10 at number 9. Do we know who he is?
Didn't watch him. What I can say is I've watched teams play against Iowa for different prospects, and I never saw him make a play. So
I guess that answers everything. So is there anything else we want to hit on before we get out of here?
Guys, I think we got to hit Deion Walker.
We skimmed over it. We should. Yeah, okay, fine.
Dude, for a second there, I watched the Georgia game, and guys, I was gonna put him as a top 50 prospect. I was there. His Georgia game was insane. I saw somebody today.
I think I had him at like 53 before I did the film.
Yeah,
people have him as high. Danny Kelly has him at 48.
I'm like, man, I can't get there because he is a massive human who plays like he is 240 pounds. He stands up on everything.
He is the bull issue.
Right,
Doesn't know his own size.
He tries to stand up and play patty cake with his hands on everything. You are 340 pounds. You got to get downhill into somebody's chest. And not a great one stopper. The run stops he does make is he kind of gets pushed back and is able to swim guys. And it's just, we talk about inconsistencies with a couple of these guys. There is no one more inconsistent in this defensive tackle class than Deion Walker. His Georgia game, that is B+ film. Liked it. And then I watched 2 other games, and it was D-. It was not good. Didn't have a good Senior Bowl. Somebody said he might have had a broken back that he was playing through. If that's the case, that makes sense in terms of his
I don't know why you're playing with a broken back, though.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. I have no idea if that's true or not. I just saw somebody tweet it out, but like that would explain some. But man, if he was healthy, like just didn't like what I saw.
Yeah, so a huge development project. You're going to have to put a lot of work into it. And it's really not because of his technical skills. It is because of his size alone that we're even talking about him, I feel like. So, again, Tyler pretty much hit on everything. I have him at 82, so very big drop-off. But, again, film is king. And dude did not have a whole lot of good film.
And then the other thing that we thought we were going to be able to hang our hat on with him is freak athlete testing. And he went out there and had a 3-point-something relative athletic score. Like, it was just bad.
It was abysmal, yeah.
Everything that we thought we were going to be able to say, hey, this is what Deion Walker does, and this is why you're going to take him in the second round, is just not there anymore after doing study.
I would like to argue he might have had one of the worst drop-offs.
I wouldn't argue
the pre-draft process.
Yeah.
I got nothing to say here. I mean, you guys are just summing it up perfectly, and I got to be honest, have way more opinions on Deion Walker than I do. Clearly, I didn't know his name that well. I think that's it. We're going to get out of here. Thank you all for listening. That was Defensive Tackles. I don't know what we're doing for our next show, but stay tuned. It's going to be a good one. Have a great day. DBs? Oh, heck yeah, brother. Let's do it. We're going to talk a whole lot about Travis Hunter. Have a great day. Mind the gap on your way out.